A federal judge today ruled that former President Trump and his allies likely committed felonies by trying to overturn the 2020 election result.
Former President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is scheduled to come before the committee later on this week.
The January 6th committee is set to vote on contempt of Congress charges for two former aides to President Trump.
And those votes are coming within the hour. A lot of news here, and we are joined for a legal breakdown by former acting U.S. Solicitor General Neil Katyal. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Great to have you. Two contempt votes coming up against Scavino and Navarro, both involved for reasons we just broke down. What do you see as the strength of the House's argument here that they should be held in contempt, which means they could be indicted?
The House has an incredibly strong argument, Ari. As you say, Mark Meadows had some sort of arguments to maybe not be prosecuted for contempt, and Merrick Garland's evaluating that right now. But these guys have basically squat, to use the technical legal term. I mean, it's astounding to me that they are making the same executive privilege arguments that Trump's inner circle made 6 months ago, and Trump himself made, and it all got rejected by the United States Supreme Court in an 8-1 decision. I mean, what's next for these people? I mean, I don't know what their next big legal move is. Is it going to be something like, sourdough starter and listening to folklore or something? I mean, we've been through this.
Yeah, and Mr. Navarro is different than some in that he has been very voluble. I want to remind everyone that most people, including Trump aides and allies, have complied in various ways with the committee. Indeed, the Times actually has a rundown today. It says Navarro and Scavino are among just a handful of allies who've refused to sit for interviews or turn over documents. More than 750 witnesses, including top White House officials, have complied with the committee's request. Contrast that to some more of what Peter Navarro did tell me, where he just seemed to feel that because he cares about this and has his angry, passionate view about what should have happened in the election, that everyone else, the committee, Pence, who obviously outranks him in the administration, everyone else that disagrees is just wrong. Here's what he said about all of that in the interview. What do you say to former Vice President Pence?
I'd love to do an intervention with Mike Pence.
Peter, he says you're un-American. He says you're wrong.
Mike was just a tool and a puppet of these guys. He betrayed the president.
You just think Mike Pence is wrong, doesn't understand the law or the Constitution.
Yes.
That's how it went back and forth. The report has more details on that. It gets serious and legal tonight with a contempt vote. Peter Navarro seems to think that if he has a strong opinion about something, if he feels strongly about it, then the rules and the law doesn't apply to him. Do you see him at a certain point here as sort of the Will Smith of this probe, where he doesn't think the rules apply, and that's not true?
Yeah, I mean, Ari, that interview you did was just beautiful. It really did get to the essence of the thing. And look, executive privilege is a real thing. It exists. It's existed since the founding, and it's designed to protect presidential secrecy and important things like foreign affairs discussions or the like. Here's what it's not. It's not something that selectively allows the president and his henchmen to decide, well, I'll tell Ari something, or as Peter Navarro did, I'll write about it in my book, but I won't tell a court and I won't tell the Congress. That's not it. When you do those kinds of things, you waive whatever privilege claims you got, which is why Navarro's claim is the absolute rock bottom weakest. I mean, I respect him for coming on the show and being a friend of the show and taking your questions and answering them honestly, but he blew any executive privilege claim he might have had. And truthfully, he didn't have one to begin with.
Right. And as you say, there's the transparency side, which is we're trying to get information and evidence. Then there's the legal side. The fact that he has decided to give more evidence to voluntary settings like interviews than to legally required ones like subpoena-backed investigations is a theory, if you want to call it that, or a thin case that he's making that the Congress appears to disagree with, and we're going to track that vote tonight. That effort for what he calls a sweep, what I pressed him on as a coup, overlaps with this other news, a judge saying this. I mentioned the judge saying Trump likely committed a crime is a big deal. You don't usually see that kind of talk in a ruling. And here the judge says, quote, it was a coup in search of a legal theory, and it would have permanently ended the peaceful transfer of power. Stark language from rulings that you and I know, and anyone who's hopped online to kind of download one of these knows, are usually quite careful, sober, measured. This is not a tweet. What does it mean to see something so starkly put by a judge? Give us your reaction to this ruling, please.
It's hugely significant, Ari. I don't think I've ever seen a case go more sideways. I mean, this started out as a claim about attorney-client privilege about one of Trump's attorneys, and it's wound up with a federal judge writing a 44-page written opinion that concludes that Donald Trump likely committed serious federal felonies. And that isn't something you see. You don't see federal judges accusing a president of the United States of committing federal felonies. But this judge did. He went through in meticulous detail the statutes, both the conspiracy statute and the obstruction of a official proceeding statutes, and concluded Donald Trump likely committed federal crimes. So what does that mean? Well, it's written like a prosecution memo, like something a prosecutor would write to her boss to say, I want to indict this person. But it's a federal judge doing so. And look, I think we're all frustrated with Merrick Garland at this point. I mean, it's been a long time that he's had these investigations. We don't even know how much of an investigation there's been into Trump. But you can't read this opinion and do anything else if you're the Attorney General, but make sure and get to the very bottom of everything that happened with Donald Trump himself in January 6th. It's one thing to talk about Meadows or Bannon or, Navarro or all of these other people. It's another thing to talk about the president himself committing wrongdoing, which is what this federal judge said.
All put quite clearly. And I'll mention, because there's so much news, we had trouble fitting all of it into the headline banner, which is below. And I didn't even get to ask you about what you'd want to know from Jared Kushner. That's coming up later in the week. And the Ginny Thomas questions, which relate to all of this. So luckily, we get Neil frequently around here when he's available. So we hope to get you back to get into some of the rest of all of this news. Thank you, Neil.